Hello, Tony. Welcome to our daily interview. First of all, congratulations receiving two awards in UIA 2030 awards this year. Um, your second project, awarded in the SDG 11.7 category, focusing on access to the green and public space. The Nanchang City Park presents a different urban condition, transforming a polluted fish farm and coal ash dumping ground into a larger public landscape. So could you tell us more about the team behind the project and how did the project start?
Yes. So the team behind the project Turenscape, we focus on nature-based solution. We focus on using nature to heal places that were polluted by humans, by industry. And so the site, when the government approached us, the site used to be heavily polluted. It used to be in industry and fisheries, where you had agriculture and you had a lot of runoff. So the ground had too much nutrients. So normally in nature, you have a normal cycle where you have plants using the nutrients, and you have the animals and their feces. It becomes a natural cycle. But when you have a artificial, or you have agriculture, very often fertilizer is overused, and it's the same with fishery. There's a lot of chemicals that are used, and so the government approached us on how to solve this problem. And instead of, you could just try to use machines to take away all this polluted soil. But instead, our solutions usually are trying to use nature to see if we can do this in a better way. And so instead of trying to move the soil somewhere else, because it doesn't matter where you move it, it's still going to be pollution, right? But in fact, a lot of these are nutrients that nature can actually absorb over time. And so our idea usually is to make islands and to provide opportunities for the water to be oxygenated, to have different types of habitats, to attract different species of plants, of insects, of different bacteria, to break down these toxins, and to restore nature.
One of the most interesting aspects of the project was the transformation of the waste materials into ecological infrastructures, and particularly through the creation of the island system. So could you elaborate on this strategy and how it informed the park's identity later on?
Yes. So the island system was actually inspired by the traditional marshlands, that agricultural marshlands that the Aztec Chinamapa system, right? So instead of removing them, and when you remove all this topsoil, it's very costly. Instead of that, we just do a simple cut and fill. So instead of moving everything everywhere, we move it around within the local vicinity. So you save a lot on fuel, on construction costs. And so the island system, we create islands. So we dig, and that becomes a smaller lake, and then we pile it up, so it becomes an island, and this creates different habitats. So this way, you have different habitats, different environments for different organisms to thrive. At the same time, it becomes a reservoir for floodwater. So the water line, it's not static. It's always dynamic. It's always shifting. When there's more water, when it floods, it grows, and during droughts, the water line lowers. And this is also very similar to what happens in ancient Egypt, when the Nile would flood periodically. And what happened was, it would bring nutrients it was you could say a automatic or an ancient system that worked really well before humans invented fertilizer. And that's why the Nile was so productive, is because of this flooding, of this redistribution of nutrients. And so we take a lot of our ideas from ancient wisdom.
Amazing. So the project embraces a more dynamic and sometimes described as a messy ecological aesthetic. So compared to the conventional urban parks. So was there any resistance to this approach, and how did you communicate with the value of the natural process to the public and the local authorities as well?
Yes, so almost all of our projects are like this, where the government very often sees this as very risky because we are very non-traditional, because the public and the government, they are very used to kind of manicured gardens, and that's how um, the urban gardens, it used to be for the emperor, right? So all of the trees were manicured and the lakes were man-made, and you had these beautiful bridges. And I'm not saying that those are not beautiful; those are still beautiful, but what we do is more cost-effective, and it's also we are re-embracing nature. So of course, at first, there's a lot of pushback from the government. They think it's very risky, and also a lot of our projects, we require the government to tear down the gray infrastructure, and they're very often afraid to do that because that was put there by someone else, by their previous boss, right? So if I tear this down politically, it's very risky. But we've managed to convince a lot of governors and mayors to do this. I think they take this risk because they know that deep down this is the right thing to do, because they've also seen the success of our other projects, that we are able to use green infrastructure to solve problems that gray infrastructure could not solve at a larger scale and cheaper. And also, this is also something that they're afraid that the citizens will not appreciate. That a lot of the government officials, they think, okay, the citizens, they want a nice manicured park, but this is in fact not true. The citizens actually, they want there's a real need to be part of authentic nature, and not this man-made kind of cartoon version of what people think nature looks like. There's this need for authenticity, and so very often, after our parks are built, the citizens really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really a privilege to have this kind of nature in the city. So my final question is, why do you think projects like this are important within the broader framework of UN SDGs and future of the climate adaptive urban design?
Yes, so with global warming and the environment, we are going to see more floods, and with flood, it's not just a simple matter of water. It's also pollution, because it overwhelms the cities, it overwhelms water treatment plants. And when that happens, the pollution from the streets, from factories, that gets into the water systems. And that causes toxins and habitat loss. And so right now there's a really, it's very urgent that we implement more projects like this that are cost effective, that can be implemented at scale. So there's other ways of doing this, but if it's not cost effective, then you cannot do it at scale. So all of our projects are very cost effective, because we almost tear down more than we build. Right, so it's almost, if you didn't know, it would look like, oh, no one designed this place, but in fact it was designed. A lot of research was involved, and all of this is done so that we can build more resilient cities facing the climate crisis, so that cities can absorb flooding, and at the same time, because these sponge-like structures, you absorb the flooding, but at the same time, when there's a drought, then you have water to draw from. And so I think in the broader sense, this is we're not just focusing on certain metrics, but this is a very holistic approach that really is kind of what the heart of ESG is.
Yeah. So this was all from my end. Thank you very much for meeting me. Thank you for the very inspiring answers.
Yeah, thank you so much.